All good? Okay. The time is now 5 o'clock, and we'll call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Madison, will you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the agenda. I'm going to motion, as there's a couple items that need to be removed. A motion that we approve the agenda minus the current enrollment report, as we will get an updated one on the 23rd of October. There is an error with this one. And also removing the 5th grade Catalina trip, as they have decided to move in a different direction. Do I have a second?
Before we do that, do we need to, oh wait, no, she did separate them, thank you. I wanted to just double check that
They're separated.
two, okay, perfect. I second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the executive session. The board may vote to go into executive session pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A2, ARS 38-431.03A8, and ARS 38-431.03A9 to discuss the district-wide emergency operation procedure. Do I have a second?
I second.
I'm sorry. I'll motion that we do that.
I'll second.
Oh,
I have a motion and a second from Dr. Rakowski. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You might want to take your iPads just because it's on your iPad.
Right.
Um, Okay, the board has now returned from executive session, so we'll move on with our agenda. Next up is approval of the minutes for September 18th, 2024. Are there any questions or comments regarding the minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
I move we approve the minutes for September 18th.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up is informational reports, and we'll start with Superintendent Jay.
Madam President, members of the board and guests, thanks for being here. I've got quite a few things to share, so a couple, we'll be kind of all over the place, but we have our ACT. We do the ACT twice now at the high school. We're going to be doing that in the fall here, late October, early November, to get the results back. And one thing we learned last year is doing it in February and again in April is that the timing of getting the results back and being able to work on that was a little tight, so we're going to move it up this year. And our juniors will take it in October, and then they'll take it again in April as part of the state test. So that's coming up. Amira is up and running at the elementary school, so just want to give you an update on that. The teacher I spoke to love it, and the headphones from PTO are working really well, so we're happy with that, and I'll give you more updates as we go as some of the data comes in. They're also they've been unpacking those books for a while. There's a lot of boxes, but they're very excited to have their math books. Digital communications was another program that we approved earlier this year, and George is off to a really good start. Kids really like the class, and they're now moving into phase 2, which is getting the room across the way, the old counseling suite, ready for the news show, the podcasting and radio, and it's been painted by Randy, and it's going to be moving pretty fast here as we finish up term 1. We had the BMX show today at the middle school, thanks to PTO. We've been really pushing fun, highly engaged schools, the FH schools, and we've done more things so far this year than we probably did in the first semester all last year, and we're just going to keep doing more of these things to really make sure our kids have a memorable experience here. So the BMX show was today, and it went well, and went great. We have the Wacky Science Guy coming soon, as another PTO presents, and we're excited about that. At the high school, we're doing, starting in late October, we're doing a 3-on-3 basketball tournament. So you can have student teams, staff teams, or student and staff teams. There's 2 divisions. There's the pro division and the semi-pro division, if you're not taking it that seriously. So that'll be fun, and I will be playing in that. So we had our BT conference. The super conference was last Friday. I went down as a guest of BT, so they paid for me to go down and present. I presented on trimesters and how trimesters work with Beyond Textbooks. I think they had 700 people there for the conference. It was really amazing, and they do a great job down there. We had our first student advisory board meeting of the year, and I want to say the number in my head is 17 members this year. Some old ones from last year returning. Some are returning for year 3, which is awesome. And we had some new students come on board, and it was great. They gave me a lot of good information, and it was a really good experience. And so we meet every month as a superintendent student advisory board. We also have new books going on display here. So we have Point Blank, we have Stormbreaker, and we have Flipped. So these went through our literary committee and will be going on display for 60 days. And lastly, we have fall break next week, and just a reminder to everyone that there is early dismissal on Friday, and we have the following week off. And remember, students have the following Monday off as well. Staff will be in for their all-day work day, which they really enjoy. So with that, I conclude my comments.
Thank you. We pulled the enrollment report due to an error, but can you tell us approximately how many students?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we found is in one of the reports that we run, it was putting the virtual academy students in both the school and as a separate school. So when I saw the number, I told her there's no way that's right. If that's right, I'm like taking a lap around town, but that was not right. So we have been floating ever since the 10-day drops right around 1,100. And I think that's pretty fair to say it'll go up, it'll go down, depending on, people move or come in, and we track it. And I don't expect it to go up much. It might trickle up a little bit as the year goes on, but that's a fair number. I'd say 1,100.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for Dr. J regarding his comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to governing board reports. We'll start with Dr. Okowski.
Okay, unless I am forgetting something, I have nothing to report. Thanks.
Okay. Ms. Reed?
Yeah, I have a couple things. Well, I was able to volunteer at the PBIS store, which is always one of my favorite things, but one of the differences this time is that Lily invited me for one of the days, and that was awesome because we have a couple students that speak Spanish mostly.
Unfortunately, they weren't there that day.
Yeah, the one day I specifically was like, I need you here, and she showed up, and so it was, but that was really, it was great because she got to see how fun it is to interact with those kids. And then one of my favorite things about that is seeing the kids and the way that they develop budgeting and saving, and then they buy stuff for their friends and or for their siblings at home. And then this week there was something special for me personally when I took my kids to the store to spend the money that they've been working and saving, and my son bought some stuff to donate for the PBIS store because he's enjoyed seeing the kids have fun. And then one of the other things was while we were there for the PBIS store one day, there was the fire drill. And so I got to be a part of that. And not only did I see how well it was executed, but our kids were very well behaved. The students were really well behaved, and our staff was so patient, because I would encourage anyone with kids to try and do a fire drill anywhere. And even like with my two, I know that that would be a handful. And our staff handled their classes very, very professionally and very tenderly, and it was great.
Mrs. Acker?
Oops, sorry. I have quite a few things. Well, obviously, we were all at the homecoming parade. I went to the Be Kind assembly, which was excellent. The kids really had fun. The teachers had fun. And they were really informative, so it was really nice. I did go today to the BMX assembly, which was interesting. Anybody wants to see, I have some
I saw it on
videos of
Facebook.
different things that they did. So that was fun. I attended the Arizona School Boards Association virtual voting. For the first time, they let you do it, because that's usually on Saturday and you have to go back. I wasn't able to attend. Dr. Wachowski attended instead of me, which was really good because it's a law conference. It's incredible information. But I did the virtual voting, which was really good. I also went to the Maricopa County meeting, and I got an award
Yay.
on, boardmanship. So that was fun. It's the lowest ranking of all of them, but at least I did it. So I was there, and we had some good conversations around the table about special ed and what's happening. So that was very good to know that we are certainly not the only ones, so there's something we can do. As you got from Krista, we need to vote on the new bylaw, well, it's not new bylaws.
That'll be on-
updated bylaws.
I have that coming on the October 23rd
Great,
agenda.
because we need to have the voting on that before
December 13th.
December 13th. And coming up for those people running for school board, whoever gets in, just make sure when you attend the new board members thing that we all did.
Orientation.
And it's December 18th, 19th, 20th so far. So the first day is for the new board members. So it was very informative. They really tell you everything. So I'd like to see more people go, just not just me. And I am on the, Native American Hispanic Caucus. I think I'm secretary, but I thought I was supposed to be vice president. They told me I'm secretary. I don't like taking minutes, but I will. And I think that's about it.
Thank you. As Mrs. Acker said, I participated in the homecoming parade. I always love that parade. I love being able to see all the people, community members, little kids that aren't in the parade, parents line the streets of Avenue of the Fountain. I was so sad when it wasn't on Avenue of the Fountain, because I think that's such a great tradition in our town with our school district to really showcase what our kids are doing here and to give people a little insight that don't come onto our campuses. So I'm always pleased when that's back on Avenue of the Fountains. And I hope that it helps the businesses there too, because we draw such a big crowd that, you know, the businesses are getting some people to come in and patron their establishments. So, and then I went to the middle school Second Chance Chamber of Commerce dedication when they did the ribbon cutting for the Second Chance store that Ms. Beck has done. She's done an amazing job. You know, Stephanie has always been such a giver in this school, and she's always given back so much to the kids. And I just want to thank her so much for everything that she does. And having this store for these kids is just a great opportunity. And Mrs. Cardello has started one at McDowell Mountain. So I just hope that keeps expanding. And then last, I went to the candidate forum that the Chamber of Commerce held, and Dr. Rakowski, Mrs. Duckworth, and Mrs. Evans all participated, and I'd like to congratulate you all. It was very nice to listen to you and your answers, and I wish all of you the best and good luck to the top two. So, okay, with that, we'll move on to the people we really want to hear from. Stu, go, because I like to hear from the kids. Coming up, tell us your name and what position you hold and what grade you are.
Hi, my name is Colleen Schreiber. I am our charity coordinator for this year, although we are taking a break for charity and focusing on student events.
I don't think their
I don't know if
microphone's
it's
on.
Right.
Yeah.
Hold on, she'll help you.
It lost in bottom. It's just your phone, I apologize. There you go.
Start over.
Hi, my name is Colleen Strafer. I am the charity coordinator. Although Stugo is taking a step aside from charity events this year, I am still helping out with fundraising and other events.
My name is Maya Hankton. I'm sophomore vice president.
I'm a sophomore too. We just finished up homecoming. That was great. We had good attendance, and we did organized pep assembly where we had the pie teacher fundraiser. That was very successful. We raised a couple $100 from that. That'll go towards other events. And now we're just working on our fall events. We have a Boograms event fundraiser coming up. We'll sell like the little lollipops with the little ghosts on them. And then we're planning a Halloween movie night where we'll show The Nightmare Before Christmas. And I think that's all.
Okay. Well, you all did an amazing job on homecoming. It was my last homecoming that I'll be participating in, but I have always been so honored to be part of your parade. So congratulations, and you guys did a great job, and good luck on the rest of the year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up are site council minutes. Are there any questions or comments regarding the site council minutes?
They were very thorough. I really like reading all the information from all the schools.
Me too, and I love that it's all in the same format.
Mhm.
Okay. Hearing no other questions or comments, the current enrollment report was removed, so we will keep going. The next is the AASBO Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting. Who wants to discuss this?
I'll
Mr.
let
Hart?
our finance come on up, but it was, Craig Rodolphe had reached out and shared with me that we had won this award, and I thought it was important to share that out with all the work we've been doing over the last couple of years. So, Chris?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. And I can attest just about the student advisory. I was promised some pizza from that, and it never happened. So there were a lot of kids, so that is true. Just a little bitter about it. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, Mr. Rodolphe is taking a night off from the board meeting, but he told me maybe a week ago that he had applied for this, a lot based on last year and the hard work there. And the award from ASBO is in large part based on financial transparency, and I think this district's taken some hits past years in that area, and I think from working up close with the entire district office, Dr. J, the staff, he had a firsthand account of how hard people worked and the positive attitude of, making some changes and moving forward positively. So he took I think what he thought was a shot in the dark and applied for the award, and we did win it. And he emphasized that it rarely goes to a first-time applicant, and he was very proud, and in his words asked us to share it with all of you, and frankly shout it from the rooftops, because it's definitely a nice award to get. So it's really a credit to Craig, Tyler, Alicia, and the whole, and really everyone in the district office and finance and how we work as a team. So that's
So,
what happened.
just so I could share, the certificate says, "A certificate of excellence in financial reporting is presented Fountain Hills Unified School District for its annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year. The district report meets criteria established by ASBO's International Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting." So, like I said, we have been working really hard to ensure that procedures and cleaning up things from the audits, and we're definitely made huge strides over the last couple of years. And it does take some time for everyone to see that, because with the financial reporting, again, you're always talking a year or even two in the past, so it takes a little time to catch up with the work that's being done. So I feel really good to see that, and we want to share that with everyone, so, yeah.
Thank you. Congratulations
Yep.
to the finance team, and we appreciate your efforts on that.
Yep.
Does anyone have a question or comment about it?
No, I just wanted to know, are you going to advertise this, put it in the paper or someplace? I think people need to know this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that, I know that the Times always covers board meetings, that they'll maybe reach out to me and we can share that out. Like I said, we still have work to do, like, there's no doubt about that. But I want the community to understand that change takes time, and we've had some consistency in the district, maybe not in the financial director position, but we've had in our site, some of our site admin, even though Val's new, she's been with the district 14 years, she knows the policies and procedures, myself being here in year 3. So those types of things, I think, are helping, that we're speaking the same language and we're moving forward positively.
Quick question.
Go ahead.
My only question was on the fiscal year that this was reviewing, because it looks like it's the 22-23 year. Because it says fiscal year ended 2023.
Like I said, they're always a little bit behind on some of those things. So this would have been my first year here, 22-23.
Yeah, and I thought that year we received a pretty bad audit.
No, that was from the year before.
Okay.
Yeah, so like I said, they're always out,
Yeah.
and Tyler can attest to this,
I
but they're.
don't think that we've received a really good one since I've been here.
Our last
so
audit
this-
was good.
It was, yeah, we
It was
made
significantly
strides.
better,
but
and then we went back and we fixed things, so is this reflecting us having
This
gone
is on
back?
financial transparency. They're not saying
Okay, yeah.
everything's perfect. They're saying that our
Yeah.
reporting
Echo that.
has improved.
Okay,
And like in anything, like when you're building, whether it's a sports team, an organization, whatever, you have your small wins, and those turn into larger wins, and it creates a sense of accomplishment within those people working on that team. So, like I said, we're not saying that everything's perfect. What we're saying is that the work we're doing is improving, and it is being recognized as that. And as time goes on, I am confident that these audits will each year be less and less issues, because we've addressed so many of them that we started with. So, yeah.
did we apply for this award for any of the other years, or do we have to apply for it in retrospect?
I'd have to talk to Craig about that. so
I
he's
doubt
not
that we
here.
applied, because this
Yeah.
was actually Craig that did it, and Craig did work for us before. And the last audit, the really bad audit that we had, the auditor general actually got involved. The last audit that we had, we did not have enough discrepancies. There's always going to be discrepancies, nothing's perfect, but it did not warrant the Auditor General getting involved. So they were things that were correctable, and that was it.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
So maybe rather than relying on the Times, since not everybody reads them, maybe in Falcon Focus, this could be included?
Yeah, we could certainly do that. Like I said, I just want to be clear. It's great to get any kind of positive news in that regard, and we do still have work to do, but again, it is going even back to those things, a lot of it is procedural, and a lot of it is, staff turnover, and we've really seen a decrease in staff turnover the last couple of years. And so the key is to keep it that way, because when you have people stick with the organization, you're going to have better results than if you have turnover every year.
Anything else? Okay, hearing none. We will move on to the fiscal year 24 annual financial report. Tyler?
Good evening, President Reed, members of the board. Tonight I'll be presenting the annual financial report for fiscal year 23-24. So to echo King's financial reporting, I'm here, but this is a year in the rear. So this is looking at July 1st, 2023 through June 30, 2024. So what is the AFR, just for the board, a reminder to the board and the general public? In accordance with the Auditor General and the Arizona Revised Statute, school districts are required to prepare and submit an annual financial report which summarizes the entire year of fiscal transactions. That report is due by October 15th. This is the soonest board meeting, and again, I openly apologize for getting the report so late to the board. It's always a sprint to get it to the board, or to get it complete, first of all, and then another hurdle to get it to the board in time for you guys to review. But after this report, I'm sure there'll be questions, but if any of you want to sit down with me, Dr. J or Mr. Harmon one-on-one and review this, this is expenditures that have taken place. There's no really action on this report. It's really a report on expenditures that have taken place. So I'll be happy to sit one-on-one if you want to go through this further. But back to what is the report. The Auditor General, in consultation with the Arizona Department of Education, prescribed the AFR format. This format has changed year after year. It actually changed again this year to the better. If you remember results-based funding, I talked about that on the budget last year. That was dissolved by Governor Hobbs and then incorporated into the budgetary funds, so our M&O obligation. So no longer do we have to report out on those funds because there's no more funds to be reported out on. So typically you see reports added to this but not subtracted, so that was a win. The rest of this is pretty much the same year after year, and I'll do my best right now to talk about the general AFR. Any of the supplemental reports really support the AFR package. So a part of the AFR is what happens after this is submitted. The Auditor General takes this, compiles it, and creates a classroom spending report. So I know a little bit about how they classify expenditures, and so I give the board a little preview of what that might look like. This report is issued by the Auditor General in November, and each board member gets an email, Dr. J gets an email, but this is kind of what it will look like going into November. I'm going to jump to the next slide because this pie chart really just shows an overall arching, but this next slide kind of shows a comparison from year to year. We can see some massive fluctuations and changes in expenditures, and what this report does, I want to be very clear, this is all expenditures. So this includes grants, E-rate, every single expenditure in the district. This isn't subjective to just maintenance and operations or capital. So keep that in mind as several of our big grants are expiring or expired, and so some of those expenditures shifted the way this percentages are now categorized in fiscal 24. I'll touch on a couple of the big changes. One, classroom is slightly down, but instructional support, that is your support level for kind of think of your librarians, those categories. You did have some budgeted positions previously in 23 that were supported by grants. ESSER, to be more specific, those were expended, and so into this year, those were moved out. Student support is generally down. That's your 2,100, so that's your psychologist, PT, OT. Again, you had several positions budgeted in former grants that were either moved to outsourcing or not brought through that particular funding code. Administration, this increase was kind of proportionate to, I think some of your administrators in 23 were TOSAs, and then now there were deans, or formally now classified per our accounting records as administrators. So that's that increase. School plants, I've seen a number of repairs. The board is not immune to seeing that. You guys have seen those, talked about those. So those repairs have resulted in a shift in increased expenditures in the plant fund or category. Transportation is down, so we actually saw a reduction. The biggest expenditure was staffing was down. Part of that is the inability to hire drivers last year versus the year prior is what I'm attributing that to, but the overall expenditures for transportation staff resulted in that decrease. And food services was flat. That was the only one that had no change. And again, I'm kind of estimating what this classroom spending report will look like. I will more than likely be 1 or 2% off, but this gives you a good indication of that report ahead of November. So summary of the budget controlled funds. These are the two big funds that your district is privy to. These are funds that are formula controlled by your student count. So these are always ones I want to touch on. I try to create a graph here to touch on your budget and your carry forward, because carry forward is a result of how you expended that year and what money you're carrying forward. Again, maintenance and operations, that's mostly your salaries and benefits to the district, as well as supplies. That fund is represented in the graph below. You can see your budget year after year kind of remains relatively flat. You have to remember, as you're losing students too, the state is also increasing in terms of inflation with the per pupil basis. So that net increase in budget is not necessarily increased because of students, but there's other factors that result in budget increasing. On the flip side, your budget balance carry forward, your M&O carry forward, that's a direct result of how you spent money that year. I'm going to discuss this 24 a little bit more in the next slide, but this year was a struggle. We were working really hard to get the budget to balance. We were experiencing a little bit of a negative budget balance in M&O as we were coming into June. We did move a number of impact aid funds over to cover the cost of that deficit in M&O. We were able to get the carry forward up to $321,000. It's a little bit below what we anticipated, but we utilized impact aid funds to balance that M&O budget. Speaking a little bit more on budget balance carry forward and how salaries play a role in how the funds have basically ended. Again, FY24 was really difficult in terms of spending. Majority of your spending is in salaries and benefits. The district did take action to reduce some positions going into 24. A lot of those positions were either positions that were not filled. They were budgeted but not filled, right? So it wasn't really a reduction in expenditures, rather a reduction in encumbrances. So looking at kind of a summary of what happened in 24, with M&O, the year-to-date expenditures looking at just salaries and benefits was $7.4 million. And now if you remember, I just told you your budget was $9.6 million. That equates to 68%. Now that 7.4 was after, that's reporting after we swept a bunch of salaries to impact aid. So prior to that, it was over 80%, just under 80%. 79% of your M&O budget was in salaries and benefits. That, in my experience, that is extremely high. It's really hard to support when you take 80% of your budget off the top and you look at the needs of the district in terms of maintenance, your others, any supplies of the district. It does not go far. And so that's an area of concern, and I'll touch on that in the last slide, but that the district will need to focus on going into next fiscal year. The Classroom Site Fund, that plan, Kaylee has worked with me and Confer to utilize a lot of that money to put back into the teacher's pay, and that's what it's there for. And so as sales tax, remember that fund is a portion of sales tax, and that kind of fluctuates year to year. Thankfully, Arizona has seen a good couple years of sales tax. We've held the World Series. We've had a lot of events that have increased that bucket. So just really a footnote for that fund, 33% of that fund is obligated towards salaries, which I think is well within the safety zone, and that may be an area of focus when you're looking at your meet and confer conversations where you can potentially increase teacher salaries from that bucket, but maybe reduce them from M&M. Looking at the instructional improvement fund, there's not much money in that fund, but I just wanted to touch on that one. You have about 41%. You do a lot of supplementals from that fund. Instructional improvement fund, that's the revenue that you get from Indian gaming. There's a proportionate share that you get from that. So you're leveraging a lot of funds for salaries is what this kind of slide is getting at. Again, impact aid, I discussed that earlier, that you were carrying over a fund balance, so don't seem being extremely stopped at the 189%, but that 1.9 million year to date was a result in a lot of the M&O expenditures from salaries and benefits being moved to that fund. You've been carrying over a large balance in that fund, so thankfully that was there. But that basically exceeded the annual revenue by 89%. So that's not a long-term solution. That was a Band-Aid for this year that we utilized. Food service, really, you guys, if you break even, that's a good year. A portion of Tammy's salary is paid to there because she does assist with the National School Lunch and Breakfast Program. Rental, that has been a resource for custodial salaries and stuff like that. That may be another area where the board needs to look at, as well as, I know I've been having conversations with Dr. J and Mr. Hartman. With Four Peaks now being a rental, that some of that revenue will be removed, and so we'll need to proportionally look at how much salaries we're obligating to that fund to make sure that counts.
That rental fund was Four Peaks?
Not completely, no, but a large portion of money was coming in from Four Peaks, so.
So that includes Four Peaks and like when we rent out the pickleball, all of the.
This is rentals
for like the learning
entire
center,
district.
everything?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
The club basketball team that rents from us, anything that we rent our facilities out for.
Okay.
So again, it's not going away completely, but there'll be some adjustments there.
Do you know about how much adjustments from closing Four Peaks as a rental?
I do not. I can
Can
follow
we get
up
that
with
information? Thank you.
Moving down the list, we have community ed and preschool. Mostly that's just preschool. But Fund 520, you're about 96% obligated. So whatever revenue you're bringing in, you're covering your expenses for those preschool salaries, and includes the teachers and paras. But you may want to look at potentially tuition increase in the future to, as either salaries go up or inflation goes up, it's going to be harder to purchase much for that program. If you're 96% of your revenue is obligated towards salaries. Auxiliaries, I didn't put a percentage here because, as the board knows, a lot of these funds are used to pay supplementals, your coaching supplementals and stuff like that. So that's a lot of its revenues comes from participation fees as well as external donations. You're not at risk at over exceeding that fund because the majority of that's a small portion that goes to salaries. The majority of that money goes back to those student programs where they get to go on trips, purchase uniforms, etc. And then, again, just footnote, CTED and grants, those also have salary obligations, but those are, again, regulated. Those budgets are regulated by ADE, and so you are not at risk of exceeding any of those, but just know that you're utilizing a lot of different resources for salaries and benefits. And so looking back at the top at M&O, when we look at where to go, you're already utilizing a lot of your resources, so I think the board will have to look at potentially reducing salaries and benefits going into
Can I ask
next
a
year.
quick,
Yeah.
a quick question about that? When we outsource for like, when we spent the ESI money for that one position, is that entire amount counted in that? It's because it comes from M&O, correct?
Yeah, but that's contracted, so what I pulled was just district staff on,
So that's not included in that?
no,
Okay.
that'd be a contracted service, so again, just classifying this as teachers that, or staff that are on the district salary and the benefits that go with that additional staff, so.
Heather, before you move on, can you explain to the board where impact aid comes from?
Yes, so that is a federal fund that the district receives because of the number of students that the district services from the tribal lands. So you're right adjacent to, what is the?
Fort McDowell.
I drew a blank, sorry, to Fort McDowell. And so Fort McDowell is not subject to property taxes, so the federal government compensates district for picking up students who don't have, where there's no revenue source coming from. So that kind of fluctuates year to year, but the district is not at any immediate risk of losing that fund. I think you have to maintain 4 to 5% of your enrollment from a tribal, and so I think the district's well above that.
Is that per student or so many dollars per student?
It's a complicated formula. I can follow up with that, but I know Krista submits the application.
We watch that one very closely. Krista does,
Yeah.
she does a good job making sure we meet all the deadlines and, yeah, he can get you the formula.
Yeah, it's a formula. It's also based on applicants, and so they have a kind of a set aside amount of money, and then every year you have to apply. And so if somebody doesn't apply, your proportionate share can go up, but at the same time, if more people apply, you can go down. So it's a unique fund, but again, it's application based, and again, I don't see any risk of losing that, but that is directly related to providing the district compensation for students that serve.
And there's one that you do have to watch carefully because I had heard at one of the meetings that some people lost their jobs because they missed the deadline. And in some cases, they're getting $1 million or more because it's a large school district. That's a big problem if you don't do it. That's why
We
Kristen.
watch that one very closely.
Yeah.
So do we have a plan moving forward so that we're not leveraging the impact aid, since you said that it's not along?
I think I'll get to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then one last question. Where does the ESI come from? Like when
It
we're
comes from
paying-
M&O, but what this graph represents is
So then we're essentially even more top-heavy than this reflects.
yeah, there would be additional, if you want to include contracted staff, and then where do you classify subs? I mean, there can be another subcategory to this, but that wasn't my intention of representing this graph, so.
Okay. I'll let you finish then, I'll ask more questions.
Okay, so it's kind of your budget controlled funds. On the flip side, the cash controlled funds, I didn't pull every single fund out, but these are your main funds that the district this size or a district my size typically looks at. One note again, on the bottom 3 funds, those cash controlled funds are generated by revenue accrued by the school. The district does not control those funds. We keep those funds with the school program, etc. And so if football raises money for football, we keep football gets to spend that money. The district just accounts for that money. So looking at the summary of district cash funds, starting with food service, which is the light blue line. Again, your program runs about even. So what that fund balance has been sitting in that account has been basically covering any good or bad years. So again, 2020 started at 125,000. This year ended at 80,000. It was a year in which you lost money in that program. Looking at Civic Center rental, 515, it's represented by the darker, almost black line. 2020, that was at 142,000. It peaked last fiscal year, or excuse me, 2 fiscal years prior, at 306, and this year you ended your fund balance at $223,000.
And that's just 2024 that ended, so was that 23, 24? Because we're in 24, 25, right? So this is, so.
24 would be as of June 30. That's what you're rolling into this year, fiscal 25.
Yeah.
as a fund balance, not ending balance.
So this 223 was even before we closed Four Peaks, or right about when we were?
I mean, so you're open 6 months of the year, so that would have accrued revenue for half of the year.
Okay, thank you.
But again, I'll follow up on the exact revenue from that program. Looking at community schools, I just kind of touched on this, but that's represented in the green line. In 2020, that balance was 125,000. Now moving into 2024, it's 38,000. And then I represented that earlier and showed that salaries are taking about almost 100% of that. So that balance would stay flat and or decrease if tuition probably is not looked at in the future. The last one, indirect costs. We've been working really hard in grants. In 2020, that ending balance was 56,000, and now we have that up to 106,000. Indirect costs, for the board's perspective, is compensation from the grant programs. The grant programs allow us to write in a percentage that the district can claim back for overhead expenses. So that is a summary of your top cash funds. Kind of looking at the key takeaways from this AFR and at next year's budget. It's never too early to plan, but as I mentioned, I think I've highlighted, I think the district needs to take a harder look at staffing standards with student enrollment either staying flat or kind of maybe increasing slightly. There probably needs to be discussion to maybe adjust staffing down. Number two, address the rising facility maintenance costs. You saw in the classroom site fund report that cost is going to continue to go up. I know Chris is working on leveraging the SFB to try to get grants. We have our applications all kind of up to date. We're working with the liaison, but it's just an overarching question: how do we continue to maintain these aging buildings? And number three, look for alternative revenue sources. So I mentioned earlier, increased preschool tuition, if that's something the board wants to entertain. The sale of the land is on the initial phase of that is on the agenda for later in terms of issuing an RFP for real estate services. And this is just a shot in the dark, but increasing athletic fees. I mean, it's just rhetorical question, but I think the board gets the point. I think there needs to be some discussion regarding how we're budgeting for 26 and preparing for these high staffing costs and how we're going to balance the budget for 26. So with that, I'm going to take over the mic.
Okay, thank you. We'll go one by one. I'll start with Dr. Kelsey. Do you have questions for Tyler?
Just one question, back to the pie chart. Do you have a sense of, for the 16% for administration, how does that compare to other districts, especially comparable sized districts?
Yeah, so you're a little high. So the Auditor General does compare to relatively like-sized districts. I think the average is 14%. So about 1.5% higher, and then I'm projecting about 2%. If the 16% stays true, we'll be about 2% above your peer district average for administration.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Because you've asked so many questions, I'm going to go to Lillian. Lillian, do you have questions for Tyler?
No, I think it's good that we start looking at the questions that you had at the bottom there, just to figure out where to get cash to be able to take care of everything.
Yeah, and I think it's just having an open, transparent conversation starting early in the year.
And then Madison?
I have another question for you, and then I have a question for Kane. On one of the supplemental information things that Krista sent us, it listed, I just screenshot, so I don't have the name of the document,
Okay.
but it states the district's programs 200, 512, 514, and 515 special education spending was way greater than base weighted IDEA and other special education funding. So is it saying our special education is higher than other districts our size, like that we're spending more here? And I think we probably are because we outsource. And then because of the ESI.
I don't know what report you're referring to, but
it was the, let me see if I can find it.
I can just speak to the AFR, and on page 2, you can see year after year comparison. The Auditor General, the forms actually list a percentage increase. your spending was a 1,000% increase.
1,000%.
Yeah.
And I can speak to that.
Well, and that includes that position, the ESI position that we just funded correctly, that we're
Remember,
paying.
this is for
This is,
Well,
20.
I guess that's true, we're a year
This
back,
is
so
a year
then next
back.
year it's gonna be even worse. Because that, again, to me, like, if we're spending more than other districts on a special ed program, we're small, I think that we should look at bringing all of the things into our district and boosting the pay within so that we're still saving and not paying a for-profit company, because in the end, we're outsourcing so many things that I think it eats up so much of our budget.
Well, I agree, and I brought that to you all a year ago, saying I have a real issue with the contracted employees, okay? But I can tell you other districts, and I just spoke at Guppy Mac about this to all superintendents, everybody's dealing with that. There are no sped teachers available. So again, you have a teacher shortage that's coming. And I don't think people realize how serious it's going to be in the next 5 years. We're feeling it already here. The only thing that I think saved us this past couple of years is we've had real strong retention rates on most positions. Okay, we've had some that, and you saw last year almost all of our staff we lost moved. We went through that. So you can certainly set the salary higher for sped. I support that 100%. I brought you guys a plan. We can talk about that further as we get closer to meet and confer, finalizing, and setting salary schedules. I support that 100%. What I'm telling you is that the application pool is so shallow that I don't know how much that's going to move the needle. That's number one. And you got to remember, we're talking a handful of teachers here. 2 that are contracted. I think we have 2 out of all of them. You have a staff at McDowell Mountain that's been very, very stable and solid for years. They're starting to retire. We had one last year retire that had been with the district for a long, long time. As they retire out, I don't see the next wave of people coming in behind them. So we'll address that. These costs, though, are mostly outside placements, okay, that we're talking about to ACES, Sierra Academy. These are students we don't have as a district of 1,100 students. We don't have the program, the staffing, the teacher, any of that to be able to right now keep them in place. We've made some strides. We started a level C self-contained program at McDowell Mountain. This is year 2. We started it in 2022-23, and that has helped a little bit. It has, okay? But to get a D level program off at the high school, which is similar to the ACES, according to what I've been shared with by Leah, that teacher has to be not only SPED certified, but highly qualified in math, English, science, and social studies. Finding someone that can do that is really, really, really challenging. So, Higley, do you guys have a level D program?
We do, but
Okay.
that individual is very unique.
And you have one program
1.
in the district of
Yeah.
8,000?
No, we're at 13,000.
13,000, sorry, cut you short there, sorry. You can see it's a lot of districts don't have, like Scottsdale doesn't have level D at all. So they have to send their students out to ACES in the same places we do. I'm all for getting a level D teacher. In fact, we've already started plans to do that for next year. But the salary to get one in is going to be massive, number one. Number two, finding that person and then driving to Fountain Hills, which is another issue we run into. Remember, most of our staff live in town. And a lot of staff that drive back and forth, as we've seen over the years, I think Jill can attest to this, don't stay very long, okay? So we have a lot of work cut out on the SPED costs, but it is not as simple as raising the salary, which I'm all for. It's a lot, we're just seeing way more SPED than we've seen in the past. And I think that's going to continue, according to what I've seen at these conferences I've been attending. I think those numbers are going to continue and continue and continue. Now, we have started to ask for some reimbursement on some of these. Chris has made some headway. We're not there yet to say it's official, but we've submitted some reimbursements to the state for some of those. If we get them, a huge win for us, huge. But I've been on the phone with everybody I can talk to at the Department of Ed, the county superintendent's office, 2 of our attorneys. But these numbers are real, and the thing about it is if you don't service your special ed population, now you're looking at losing federal funding, and you're looking at OCR complaints, and just a massive, massive issue. So it is very complicated. I just want to be clear about that.
Can I make one correction? Hold on. I said 1,000%. That was on a specific line. It's overarching sped was 67% increase. Sorry, I just want to.
67%. That's a big difference from 1,000.
Well, it was 1,000 on this one particular line, so I just.
What was the one line?
It was support
Only 67.
student services. Sorry.
Okay. I understand it's a complicated issue, and that I keep hearing that everybody's dealing with it, but at the same time, what's the average salary in Arizona for a SPED teacher? Because I guarantee it's not anything near enough what they should be paying and what we were talking about possibly paying them. Because I looked up what in the whole country what the highest paid SPED staff is, and that's 70 to 90,000 in places like New York City and LA, where obviously the cost of living is a lot more. So I think that we could compete with that and be different than most districts in Arizona, where we actually value our staff members instead of these businesses, because in the end, we are required to have SPED services, which means there's SPED teachers somewhere. We are getting them from somewhere. Right now, it's from a third-party company that's making money off of the public taxpayers and off of our SPED students, which is terrible, and off of the teacher, which I think is the worst part, because in the end, I think we could do better by our teachers and move those numbers around and save ourselves some money by making those positions in-house. And to argue the point, if we just weren't outsourcing, I think it was 2 students cost us over $200,000 for the ACEs, and then this teacher position cost us $120,000. So that's $300,000 to play with, to put towards maybe doing programs here.
I get it, and I want to be clear. I don't support at all getting the contracted teachers. We have to find a solution, but you have to understand, if we find a level D teacher that can do emotional disabilities, okay, that's a specific skill set. Then you have a student who has autism needs or has a different, that can't be in that room. Now you're talking about another teacher and another teacher. And so when you're small like us, to find all of that, not just the teacher alone is number one. Then you have to find paras, instructional assistants, which we don't even have those filled here yet with regular classroom ones that are just, these are resource classrooms and things like that. So, like I said, it is very, very complicated, and we all agree, I think everyone up here agrees, we need to find a solution to SPED. I'm telling you that it's not as simple as we put a plan together and it works. It's going to be probably a multi-year attempt, and we're going to have to look at where can we make some changes. You guys want to create a salary schedule for a SPED teacher at $100,000?
Well, we're
That's
spending
choice.
$100,000 per student at the ACEs, essentially.
But
And so
if we had 40 students that, K through 12, if we have 40 students that need specialized SPED, you could require 6 to 8 teachers. It's not just one teacher that's going to teach K through 12 with SPED. And so when you're saying $100,000 for 6 to 8 teachers, now you could be spending $600,000 to $800,000.
No, but what we're arguing is either we have to outsource or we have them here. So if we have to outsource, why would it be better to outsource than to hire the one teacher when outsourcing one student is more than it costs to hire one teacher?
I'm going to reiterate.
Because it doesn't make sense.
That's not accurate. The ACEs is about 50,000. It's not 100.
For the 2 students, because
For
we
2
had to pay
students,
with
it's
this
3.
transportation.
One-
It was
125.
3. Yeah, it was.
I just did it.
It was $125,000 for
Yeah.
3 students. And it's back in our, now we have 2 more students. So there's a total of 5 students now, I believe, that are going.
And they're not all, they wouldn't all be able to be in the same classroom.
I
So
understand that.
you got to understand that up front. And second of all, if you're gonna raise that salary for a new sped teacher coming in, then you need to do it for all the sped teachers we have now.
Which I argued for, and
I get, but if you look at those numbers, you can't do that unless we cut other staff. to
No,
make
or if we
room
cut
for
the contracted companies that are.
Even so,
'Cause
we're
again,
gonna have to
well,
cut staff regardless.
We also covered that some of those contracted companies that we're paying 114,000 to are only paying the teachers around 60,000. So then, again, I think that we could do better doing these things in-house and.
No one here disagrees with that. I'm telling you, getting it done is much harder than talking about doing it. So we're going to do it. I don't disagree with you. We're gonna bring that to the table. But whether or not you're gonna see immediate results by next year, I think is very minimal.
Well, I think we can have some confidence because Leah made the comment that the reason people were not taking the job was because of pay. So I think that we can have
Those are
confidence. in
your
that.
regular ed, special ed teachers. I'm sorry, not regular, these are your, not self-contained, these are
Resource.
your resource teachers.
Teachers.
When you're
No, it was
talking,
for the
of-
special ed that she had interviewed for.
Yeah.
She said she'd interviewed multiple, and that's why we were looking at outsourcing. She said, please, we really need a teacher, but then it came out in conversation that, after the interview, they seem really interested, and then when they don't take the job, it's pay. And she said that very clearly, and so I said, okay, so then why are we not having a serious conversation about raising the salary instead of outsourcing to a business and saying, sorry, we can't.
but I'm gonna tell you, it's not just sped teachers we deal with that. It's regular teachers too. I had several interviews with teachers this summer that we offered, and when they saw our salary schedule, they passed. So it's not just a sped issue. We've made some serious gains with our competition, but just know that 2.5 years ago when I arrived, our starting salary was $38,000. Okay, so you have, when you get into moving those salaries around, it's going to have an impact somewhere else. Because if you raise it for all special ed, then you have the rest of the teachers, you have to understand they're
I
gonna.
completely understand,
Yeah.
but we've already talked about this. You're telling me how qualified a sped teacher would need to be for the
Mhm.
level 4D
Yes.
class. Why wouldn't we pay more for someone that needs to be that highly qualified? Because if not anybody
I
can
think
do
you
it, then
can.
there's going to be a difference because there's a difference in
Sure.
expectation.
I think you can, but I'm saying is that if you get one teacher and they can do, say, maybe they can bring one or two of our kids back, then you gotta hire another teacher to bring other kids back, depending on what their disability
I
is.
just think we need to look at it because
Yeah.
it's said in there specifically that we're spending too much basically on sped services. And I think it's because we don't meet the needs of our students here, which I would just advise us to try and do as much as possible, both to save money and both because we would prefer to keep people close to home anyway. The other question I had was originally, it was talked about that when we rearranged the district office, that we had cut administrative positions, but I think that with the adding of Denise and then changing Leah's position, are we at a lower count than we were before, or are we back up to where we were prior?
Well, we cut Chris Alexander's position.
Yeah, but I thought, isn't that what Leah just kind of became now, the
No,
student
she was
services?
she already had a position. She
She's
was already
director of
doing,
student services.
Well, she was director of this special ed and preschool,
Yeah,
right?
well,
And
that's
then
what
now
she's-
Denise took that position,
no,
correct?
she did not. She's doing a stipend for the director position. She's on teacher pay with a stipend for the director. Leah's doing now special ed, gifted, ELL, all student services. So that position already existed. What we did is we took just the preschool off of that and put it with Denise so that Denise could be in that role. So we did cut back the administration by 2 last year. We cut the assistant principal, which was not, at the time, there was concern about that, cutting that position. And we cut Chris Alexander's position. I would say that.
Also, the principal was recommended.
It
Well,
was-
and I
yeah, well,
recommended
that
the
was the one that I think
principal,
was
and
the
that was
problem.
that was
Yeah.
not supported. So I'm just telling you that we've tried to do some things with that, and the principal position wasn't supported by anybody, okay? I even had concerns about it, but I'm looking at the financial numbers and saying, hey, this could be done. The school opened with one principal in 92 for all 7th through 12th grade. So we did look at that, and we did cut those 2 positions. I'm just gonna be real honest with you. I don't see how you could cut any more of the administration. There's me, and there's Kaylee doing the HR. You've got Chris doing multiple positions, doing maintenance. He's doing buildings. He's doing finance. And then you've got Leah doing special ed. At the sites, you got the dean positions is all that's left. And if those deans get cut, what I would guess will happen is you'll see a huge increase in student discipline issues, and you'll see a decrease in student achievement, because the principals are no longer able to be those instructional leaders they need to be, because they're dealing with discipline all day. And they currently are, for a lot of times they are still doing it, because they still have, and in some cases, less support than they've had in the past. But I think they're hanging in there. But you could, if you want to cut the dean positions, I think it would be hard to maintain principals and hard to hire them without any support.
Just a couple of comments. Number one, we really are not top-heavy when it comes to the principals or anybody else. I've never worked in a place that only had one superintendent and not at least an assistant superintendent, let alone all the other positions. And once again, I'm going to reiterate what Kane said and Jill. Yes, I agree we should pay everybody more, not just special ed. The problem is you don't have a child with a specific problem being dealt with one teacher. Doesn't mean that a child with a different problem could be in the same classroom. So by sending them to these places, as much as I hate doing it like everybody else does, they can take care of each child with the specific needs that they need. We may have to hire a lot more teachers for a handful of kids, because that's what it would come down to. The one I do have trouble with is the hiring of the teachers that are from this company. That, of course, we're all against, and like I said, every meeting that you attend, everybody else is complaining about the same thing.
Well, I'd recommend you share that out with people that can make a difference. I certainly am.
I know.
And I can tell you that
But we're
I
people that
felt,
can
I
make
felt
a
very
difference.
supported by the other superintendents that they are also feeling this, but I don't think a lot of people recognize it, how serious of a problem it is.
Yeah, well, in the end, we are the ones that choose how to allocate the funds. And so we always say that there's not enough money for teachers, but we are the ones voting on how to spend the money. And so I think that we could put our money where our mouth is a little bit more and take a stronger stand as a school board and say we're not paying those companies. And I understand that there will be kids that we cannot service here just because of our size. And that goes to the not having a
You don't have a
assistant
choice.
superintendent.
That's
Yeah.
what I'll tell you, though.
Well, no, and that's
You
what
don't
I'm
have a
saying.
choice.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
So-
There are some that we would have to outsource because we're not able to, but I think that that's not all of these cases. I think that we probably could meet them here if we had one teacher for a classroom. Similar to the self-contained at the elementary school, it's more than one student, and not all of them would have to be outsourced if we didn't have that self-contained. Some could possibly go into the general ed classes, but, so I'm saying we should just look at
No,
a
they
pathway to try and have as many students in our schools
They
as
can't
possible.
unless their IP team decides that's what they do, and.
I know, and I never got that number, which I'd
Right,
asked for.
But, well,
Doesn't matter.
Chris did.
Yeah.
What
Well,
I
I'm
will
just saying,
say
when we were
though
talking
is,
about hiring a special ed teacher at 114,000, I was asking which ones would have to be outsourced versus which ones could be in general ed, because
okay,
that's
so
what I
let's
was
just say
told.
you hire one for 90, okay? So you're saving 24,000, which is awesome, that's great. But we're only talking about 2 teachers here, so if we save, say, $40,000, that's awesome, that's great that we did that, we have our own teacher, be perfect, I'd support that 100%. But that's not, that's not, $40,000 isn't the reason we're talking about this. We're talking about this is a lot of money here. And it's very complicated. Students have very unique needs. And like I said, in large districts, and I talked to the superintendent of Mesa about how they do things, they do have level D, and it's full. They're completely full with theirs. But they have 50,000 students, and they have a program. Okay, we have 1,100 students. So for us to have a program, we're talking a teacher, at least probably 3 parapros in that room. So you're talking 4 adults for, you know, a handful of students, maybe 3 or 4 students.
AD requires certification. I think.
Yeah, you're still talking, it's still gonna be a huge cost. It might save some money, and we're all about saving any money we can save, but I don't think it's a magic, like, switch that all of a sudden our costs are gonna go way down.
I
as a
understand,
result.
he's
Yeah.
just talking about possibly looking at cutting positions. We should maybe look at saving money on positions,
Well,
because
we
that
really
goes
need to look
right back
at-
into the pot of money for.
We need to see what the teachers, what their interests are with Meet and Confer, which they started that process. And I can tell you that earlier this year, we looked at kindergarten, and I set a number. Tyler and I talked about it, and we set a number of 26 in kindergarten, okay? And that number was not popular among anybody. But that's a realistic number in most districts. Most districts open a new section at 27. So we set that number and we held that for about a week. And Val and the teachers, and I visited the rooms, and they're like, we have to open this 3rd section, we have to. We were sitting at 52 kids, maybe, and I don't think they all showed up yet, so maybe 48, 49 in the classrooms. We're talking 24, 25 to a classroom. And I had to open the 3rd section because they were just like, it has to happen. We have to open this 3rd section. So we did, and now we've got about 17, 18 kids in a class, and that's awesome. But we can't do that in every grade level. And that's what we have to address, is that when you have class sizes of 17 or 18, and we could get funded for it, it would be great to have. I think great things happen in a class size of 17 or 18. But we can't keep having those class sizes and keeping all that staff and having reduced numbers and having building issues and all those things factored in. So we're gonna have some serious conversations this school year on where we're gonna make any cuts if needed. I do believe we've bottomed out on our enrollment. I'm just looking at the numbers. We had about right around 60 kindergartners, give or take. We got about 100 seniors that are going to graduate, so we got to make up 40 this summer. We've had 80, 90 new enrollments the last couple of summers. So I think we're going to, if anything, break even year over year, or actually have more kids next year than we had this year. I think we bottomed out. I don't think we're going to grow any more, though, anytime soon. So I think we're going to hover around 1,100, maybe go to 1,125, something like that over the next couple of years, but it's not going to jump up to 1,300, 1,400 or anything like that anytime soon. So we have to look at, we can't continue to live that way. And last year, remember, the directive we got on cuts is nothing in the classroom, so we didn't cut any in the classroom. Our middle school is very tight on staffing. The high school has some room to possibly take on some middle school courses and things like that. We're gonna have to have some conversations with them. 8th grade is actually closed for open enrollment right now. They can't take any more. They're packed solid in there, okay? That's great, but if that would have been earlier in the summer, we could have hired a 2nd teacher, right, for that 8th grade.
Okay, I think we're getting kind of off course from
Yeah.
that AFR, so we're going to go ahead and move forward. So unless there's questions specifically about the numbers. Okay, hearing none. Tyler, thank you so much. I do appreciate all the work that you did to get this to us by Saturday so that the board had time to look at it. So I know that was tough.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments. Krista, do we have public comments? Okay, thanks. Call to the public. This is the time for the public to comment. Time limits may be allocated on public comment at the discretion of the board president for the board to efficiently complete its business. The board reserves the right to prohibit any comments made in a discourteous or threatening manner. Complaints about specific individuals, students, or personnel are discouraged. Personnel issues should be directed to the appropriate staff member or administrator per district policy. Members of the board may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431.01H, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. The one public comment we have is Kim Duckworth, if you'd like to come forward. It's been the practice of the board to allow 3 minutes. Okay. I'll give you like a 30-second warning when your time's almost
Okay,
up.
good, because I may or may not go over. All right. Also, I put this on my phone, so apologies for having to zone in here to read. So thank you, everyone. I'm Kim Duckworth, and I think it was stated earlier, I'm running for the school board in the upcoming election. So I wanted to thank you guys for the opportunity to make a comment. My comments are in regards to the policy changes around, I think it was 788.
788 to 791.
Yeah, to 791.
Title 9.
Which is the Title 9. So first and foremost, I just want to say that it's a shame that this vote tonight on those policy changes is on the same night as the town council meeting and the VP debate. So with that noted, I just wanted to say that I'm here asking you all to vote against putting these policy changes in place. I want to read a paragraph that I want to focus on that's a part of that policy change, where it says, an education program or activity includes locations, events, or circumstances over which the district exercised substantial control over both the respondent and the context in which the sex discrimination occurs, and also includes any building owned or controlled by a student organization that is officially recognized by the district. So I have a few simple reasons why I'm against these policy changes. And my son is in the district. I don't have any female students in the district, so I'll just clarify that. But I am myself a female. And so with that in mind, I'll read off my few reasons. There are other local districts that have voted against putting these changes in place, and therefore you do risk a decrease in enrollment, especially of female students. By making the policy broader and allowing generalizations to take place, biological females can be put at risk, both physically and emotionally. 2, the policy applies to property, as per the paragraph I just read, and without also voting into place other policies and plans to create one-stall bathrooms, one-stall locker rooms, you effectively create an environment where females feel their privacy and security are not valued and they are being discriminated against. 3, this is not an official rule yet on a national level. There are many lawsuits fighting against it.
30 seconds.
And I do believe it will go up to higher courts. And so therefore, in my mind, it is not yet a requirement. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes the public comments. We'll move forward. Next up is the personnel report. Are there any questions or comments regarding the personnel report? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
I move we approve the personnel report.
I second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up are the payroll vouchers on pages 51 to 55. Are there any questions or comments regarding the payroll vouchers?
I have a couple.
Okay. On the payroll or the payables?
Oh, payables.
Okay, this is
Yeah,
just
you're-
payroll.
You knew what I do.
I know. So this is just the payroll, 51 to 55. Are there any questions or comments on those? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion? I move that we approve the payroll vouchers as presented.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Next up are the accounts payable vouchers. Madison.
So I noticed there was a couple pretty high payments to the Fruit Group, which I know is Tyler, right?
No,
No, not the
that's not
Okay.
Tyler. The Fruth Group is our internet and IT.
IT.
Yeah.
Okay. So is this contract payments or is this extra work?
This is
Contract
So
payments.
What we did is we paid them, like, for the rest of the, I believe it was through April without, so.
Okay.
So it's contract, we have used them though for site work from time to time when we've had we've had a busy season, like at the beginning of the year, Chromebooks needing to go out and Jared is pulled in too many directions. We do ask them to come out. We've also had them come out, work on, bells, intercoms, phones, things of that nature. So, but that's not a huge cost. We paying them by the day. So I don't think that's what you're talking about. But we do use them for other things, yes. Because remember, we only have one person in our IT department.
Yeah, well, maybe this is another area where we could save some costs, because I just saw like on 8/28, 13,470, and then on 9/12, 26,941. So
Yeah,
were one of those contract and one of those extra work, or were they both contract?
Those are not extra work.
Those are not extra.
Okay.
And I can tell you, before we brought that proposal for third party, we showed the math on it. Finding IT is, again, what we can pay, extremely hard to do. And I can tell you that in all the years I've been around, we've never had more, just no issues with IT than we've had in the last 3 years.
I agree.
It was my number one issue when I was principal here, and I have not heard one IT complaint since I've been here. Nothing has escalated in my office in 3 years for IT.
Okay. And then the Logic House payment, was that contract payment, or was the 1,200 extra work?
I believe that's camera work, so we'll have to double check
So
it.
extra, not part of the contract payment?
That would either be camera or high school intercom. As it was before.
Fixing the intercoms. We've had them out for intercoms, cameras. We did add a couple of cameras in different locations that principals, after getting the cameras up, asked for. Those are minor, the wiring's already done on a lot of those cameras, so it's maybe switching out an older Panasonic camera for a newer Verkada camera. So you're paying for the camera, not necessarily for the wiring, because it already exists from the old
Date
one.
of the 1200.
9/12.
9/12.
Yeah, so my guess is, and I'd have to look, that was, like I said, high school intercom was not working. So as well as Evelyn's voice projects, when she's looking for a kid, she definitely needs the intercom, so it's a safety issue. So I can check that, but for the first few weeks,
Okay, and then we have two pretty decent Bel Air mechanical ones, a 23,950 and then an 11,260. Are
I have
those
those.
the
Those are all-
emergency
yeah.
ones, or those?
I have them all.
Okay.
So the Bel Air for,
I love how you came with the answers for me.
yep. So there were, in the voucher of 2012, the Bel Air was 23,000. That actually was made up of 5 different invoices. There was a bath and locker room at McDowell Mountain Elementary, the chilled water loop at the Little Falcons preschool, a starter engages at the middle school, high school, the P7 compressor at the preschool, and the cooling tower at McDowell Mountain. McDowell Mountain's cooling tower took up most of it. And then at 2014, the Bel Air 11,260, that was a heat pump at McDowell Mountain. And I think those were the only two.
What about the
Climatech was the 16,884. $1,800 of it was monitoring, and $15,084 was tech support. It's a contract, so it was
Okay.
payments towards the contract. The contract's divided up into 3 payments.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
Those are the main ones, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions.
Do I have the paper written down?
No, I don't think they're on your paper.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I have a question about some smaller expenditures. There's a couple for on September 4th and on, this is September 4th. Michelle Wilcox, $5,900.
I have that one.
There's 2 of those.
Michelle Wilcox is the SPED IEP payment.
Okay.
See, I did have that.
Okay, okay. Another one on September 4th, the Armenian Apostolic Church of Arizona, $1,000?
I don't know what that was for.
Have to check.
Okay.
I can look it up.
And then US Postmaster, there's two expenditures for each $4,287.73 on 9/12 and 9/19.
Yeah, so one of those was canceled. It was actually accidentally made out to the wrong, I forget the company.
Oh, it's for the election pamphlets.
Correct.
Oh, for that,
So
okay.
So one of them.
it was delivered to the postmaster instead of it to the election department, so that it had to get a stop payment, and Chris actually had it hand-delivered to the election department.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Oh,
Oh, that's an unusual prom menu. Okay, thanks.
okay. All right. Anything else on the payable vouchers? Okay, hearing none, I move that we approve the payable vouchers as presented. Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Okay, so 3-1, Krista. Next up are donations. There are a lot of donations to Stephanie's Second Chance store. That was nice to see. And then some cash donations. Those are always appreciated.
Yeah, I loved seeing the cash donations specifically to certain teachers. I thought that was
Yeah.
really neat.
Yeah. And then I really do appreciate the overages from the ticket sales. I appreciate that people donate the extra money, and that now it's really being accounted for, individually, so. Are there any questions or comments regarding the donations? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
I move we approve to accept the donations.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Next up is the updated curricular fees. There are just a few changes in red. The Little Falcons preschool is looking to up their fall camp that'll start next week to $250 a week instead of the $148.75. And then for district staff, it's a reduced rate on their regular days, and then they have a half-day fee that they've added of $25 a day and with a reduced rate for staff. And then at McDowell Mountain, the running club is going to be a trimester, not a quarter, and they're adding an agility club at $50 a trimester. And then down under the high school,
Is our basketball coach doing that one as well?
Bonner's.
Yes.
Yeah. And then at the high school, it also changed, instead of per activity, it's going to be per trimester for extracurricular fees for the Strength, Speed, and Agility Club. And then now these are both the same, but one says $50 a trimester and one says
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna ask
per
that.
trimester. Why are they the same club but different fees?
And why would it be more for the elementary?
At the high school?
The high school level, the Strength, Speed, and Agility Club is $25 per trimester, but at the elementary,
It's in this
and
price.
yeah, and right above it.
Well, these are both at the high school.
Right.
It says, under extracurricular fees, it says Strength, Speed, and Agility Club, $50 a trimester. Then right underneath it, it says the exact same thing, it says $25 per.
That is
20.
my error, and because it became a different fee.
Okay.
And I didn't remove it from the $50 one, so I will have to remove it from the $50 one.
Okay,
And then it should be the 25.
okay, so it shouldn't be under the extracurriculars with Key
Correct.
Club and Art Club and everything.
Correct.
It should have it's single line item.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
We were going back and forth on that one, so my apologies for that, but I will fix that.
Okay, then at McDowell Mountain, is it really $50 or is it $25?
It really is. So, Mrs. Halsteal is running, and Mrs. Sweet is running the one at.
Oh, at McDowell, not Bonner?
Uh-huh.
Okay, all right. Okay. Are there any other questions regarding the extracurricular fee?
I was just really excited to see the new clubs. When I heard about the Agility Club, I had only heard about the high school one, but that sounds like such a great opportunity for the kids, so grateful to Coach Bonner.
Okay, I move that we approve the updated extracurricular fees with the correction that the Strength, Speed, and Agility Club is $25 per trimester and is removed out of the extracurricular fees that are $50 per trimester at the high school.
A second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Next up is the annual financial report that Tyler presented. As he said, this does have to be approved and submitted no later than October 15th. This is our only meeting prior to October 15th. I do recommend that when the board makes its dates for next year, that you take that into consideration because this was a lot of work for Tyler and Mr. Hartman to get to the board this early in October because the fiscal year pretty much ended yesterday. So, are there any other questions regarding the annual financial report?
So us voting is accepting the information.
Right, it's already paid expenditures, so it's accepting the information and submitting it to the state.
I move we approve the FY24 annual financial report.
I second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm abstaining.
Okay, so 3-0-1, Krista. Okay, next up is policy 787. Hang on. Okay. 787 is the use of technology resources in instruction. We had discussed this at our last meeting regarding the AI programs and platforms in the classroom. Are there any questions or comments regarding use of technology in instruction? Hearing none, I move that we approve policy 780, policy advisory 787, the use of technology resources in instruction. Do I have
I second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up are policies advisory 788 to 791. This is regarding the Title IX that we had discussed at our last meeting. Are there any questions or comments regarding the Title IX? Dr. Rakowski?
I guess I have a kind of reiterate some of the comments that I spoke at the last meeting. Basically, the change in wording here is a rewrite from the original intent of Title IX. As was mentioned earlier today, there's litigation, there's lawsuits pending on this. There's also a Supreme Court ruling in June, basically reversing the Chevron doctrine, which stated that agencies were overstepping their authority. So for all of those reasons, if it's appropriate for me to make a motion that we do not approve policies 788, 789, 790, and 791, and we retain our current sexual harassment policies and grievance policies.
And that will be fine, but I would like to continue comments or questions from the board if there are
Okay.
other members.
I just have a question on that. What happens if we don't approve it with Title IX?
Nothing, because we're already respecting Title IX, and that was the reason that the litigation was brought
Yeah.
forth, is because the current administration was essentially trying to change Title IX to be specifically geared towards transgender students, which is bringing politics into it and kills the whole spirit of the Title IX, which is not discriminating. So we are not, they were trying to tie funding to it, and that's why it became such a public thing and why ASBA sent us the policy, because we were going to basically be told that if we didn't adopt the policy changes, that we were not adhering to Title IX and we would be losing our funding. That's not true.
Litigation is going to take years, so.
Yeah, well, it's because they're still trying to overstep, but it was already ruled it was unconstitutional, and there was a stop to it because the Moms for Liberty group really went to bat for that, saying that, Title IX stands on its own, just like I think our sexual harassment policy stands on its own. We do not discriminate, and I think that I would agree when the discussion's done.
And there are at least 10 states that are suing against this.
Arizona is not one.
No, but there are 10 states, so it's basically a federal issue.
Yes, and the ruling, because it's federal and because Moms for Liberty is part of that, any students whose parents belong to Moms for Liberty would fall under that, and I know for certain that we have families in our district that are part of that group because it was brought to my attention. This is, like you said, it's controversial. I don't think that we should risk the liabilities that this opens us up to and risk losing people over something that, again, is political in nature. I think that we have good policies that protect our students both from discrimination and from sexual harassment. So I would encourage us to leave our policies as is.
We do have policies that are already in place to prevent sexual harassment and sexual discrimination. I think that any student who needs to have a special area to utilize if they are not comfortable in any bathroom, whether you're in the boys' bathroom or the girls' bathroom, our school has been accommodating to that, and so I agree. I don't need a different policy to tell them that. So.
And if, we also did have that policy that was proposed by Libby at one time, if we do feel that this, that there's something to do in that, included parents in the process, which I think was really important too. So I think
you can move forward with the bathroom policy at some point. So.
Exactly. So I think that, again, we should leave this as is because there's not the forced compliance issue right now, which is the only reason I think that a lot of schools were even looking at this.
Are there any other questions or comments?
I think we're reading more into it than it has, but I understand.
I'm not willing to interpret it a different way.
Right.
Yeah, the language is there.
The language
We just
specifically
have to keep
states
it
in
as
any
is.
building, any facility, and I'm not gonna push that
And I
issue.
just want to make sure we don't have any problems with funding only because Title IX is funding.
We wouldn't be the only district. There are
Yeah.
several states across the United States, and there are several districts in our own state that said, we are not going to put this forward, that the policy is not well written.
Not at all.
It's very one-sided, and until this lawsuit is settled, I'm not risking it. I'm not.
So is the motion on the
So
table?
Dr. Rakowski made a motion.
Second it then.
I second.
Yep, Madison seconds. All in favor of not approving policy 788 to 791, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so 3-1, Krista. Thank you. Next up is the emergency operations plan. The board did discuss this with Dr. J in executive session, as our emergency plan is confidential and may not be released to the public so that it does not put our school district in harm's way. We are not going to have a discussion on this. All the discussion happened in executive session.
Can I just make one comment?
You can.
Because I do want to thank everybody that put their time into this. I appreciate the effort and the way that it was told to us, because in the end, we're voting on something that, we aren't super hands-on, and so I trust and I'm grateful for the people that worked so hard on putting that plan together.
Yep, and I give a lot of kudos to Dr. J and his staff, but I know that, you did your dissertation on this to get your PhD, so he's put a lot of time and effort into it, even when he was a principal, so he's just made it bigger and better since he's been the superintendent. So
It
thank
was
you
a
for your
lot of
time.
work. Thank you.
Absolutely. Is there a motion regarding the approval of the emergency operation plan?
I move we approve the emergency operations plan.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Next up is an intergovernmental agreement for the CTE Curriculum Consortium. I hate that word. It's just one of those words. We heard from Mrs. Meekum last time regarding this consortium that it would be used for some of the teachers at the high school that are teaching the CTED programs. Are there any questions or comments regarding the curriculum?
I'm excited for it. I think this is awesome. Thank
I
you.
think it's great. I have one question. Is who does the announcements in the morning?
So that's the goal of this program. So our hope is by the end of term 2 that they're up and running with either live or recorded announcements early in the morning for advisory. Currently, it's right now Ms. Wynn does them either, well, they were doing them over the intercom, but what they are moving to is Google Meet for teachers to turn on during advisory. So the goal of that is to have an anchor desk and an actual school announcement news style.
That's what we always had where I taught, and it's incredible.
Yeah.
They did public service announcements, they did everything. The students really worked hard at that, and at times would go to a TV station made a connection, so if there's somebody that knows anybody there.
Dr. Wheeldryer does. She's going to
Yeah.
set something up.
That's great. Any other questions regarding the IGA? Hearing none, I move that we approve the IGA with the AZCTE Curriculum Consortium.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Next up is the request for proposal for the real estate broker services. This is for the old Four Peaks building. You had the proposal in front of you. This will actually go out and anyone can send us back their bid. Are there any questions or comments regarding the request for proposal?
Can I clarify? It
Yes.
also includes the two properties listed on the upcoming
Oh,
ballot.
okay, sorry.
Pending the election.
Okay, thank you. So 2 properties pending the election, but definitely the sale of the Four Peaks building. Are there questions or comments?
When we do this, do we reach out to any specific people, or is it just it gets posted somewhere, and where is that somewhere?
It's going to be posted on the website, and you can certainly share that website link so that any potential bidders.
But is that the only place it's posted? Or is there like somewhere like publicly where contractors know to go and look for open RFPs?
Purchasing.org, I think it's the public site for state.
Government
bids.
entities?
I think there's also solicitation, yeah.
Yeah, in the newspaper, a public
Newspaper,
notice.
yeah.
Okay.
A public
Just the
notice in
Fountain
the
Hills
news.
Time?
Are we putting it in the Republic as well?
That's a question.
The requirement, I think, is just the local.
The local paper?
Yeah.
Yeah, usually a public notice is just your local paper, but you can put it anywhere you want.
The Arizona procurement website reaches all government agencies, so.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
I move we approve the request for proposal for real estate broker services.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Okay, that ends our action items. Next up is the information discussion item. We removed the 5th grade Catalina trip per the 5th grade class. Next up is the ACES. As I mentioned when we were talking about the AFR, we had more students. This is only going to be an information discussion. It will not come back as an action item as the board has already approved for the district to spend over the $100,000, but we did want to be transparent that that amount has increased based on the 2 students that we also have going now. Are there any questions or comments regarding that new amount?
Is this a new total for all of our, or is this the additional?
This
what
is
page?
additional. This
Just-
is just for the 2
if
new
it's-
students.
Like, yeah. And I do want to share, we did, Chris and I have been working on a possible reimbursement, and that comes from my conversations with the Department of Ed, and it's, again, very complicated situation. But we do feel like we've made a strong case for reimbursement for these 2. We'll see if we get it, we'll let you know, obviously, but regardless, in my conversation with the Department of Ed, we have to, obviously, we have to educate and move forward.
Are these students by any chance Title I? With all that funding that will be returned to the
No,
Department of
this,
Ed?
Title I is something different. This is, like I said, this is coming out of our M&O.
I appreciate you looking into the options with the students. With these situations, I have a really hard time because we're paying $34,000 just in the transportation. And like you said, 2 years ago, the starting salary for a teacher was only $38,000. So it's just kind of,
Yeah. And
I hate to see this going to
And I'll
other
share,
places.
transportation is beyond strapped right now. They do not have, they have no extra additional options. And that's another discussion we're gonna need to have as the year goes on about how much our drivers are pulled between sports, EVIT, transportation for special schools, plus the regular routes. It's, in my opinion, not sustainable.
And I see we're still looking for.
Yeah.
5 drivers we're looking for right now.
I do have a question. So this is for 2 sped students, for OT and speech for both. And then it says Rising Stars and transportation. Everything is at a quantity of 2, except the Rising Stars is at a quantity of 3. Why is that? Do we know?
Is that for the transportation?
No, it says Rising Stars, whatever Rising Stars is. But by it being 3, it increased it by $10,000.
Yeah, I will clarify with Leah to make sure that we're not being, my understanding would be that maybe there's something with the IEP that requires a certain service, and maybe they need it twice a day, and so it
Okay.
counts as twice, but
I see.
I will double check that, but she was, she's pretty good on making sure that everything adds up and looks correctly. And we did talk to transportation about the possibility of transporting, and like I said, he's really struggling right now.
Well, do all of the students that go to the ACES go to the same campus? Like our students?
They do have multiple campuses, but there also becomes issues with can the student, do they have needs in the car, like an aid or a couple of aids, or can they be in the car with somebody? So there are some other questions that Leah has to look at in order to do it. So again, I'm hopeful we'll be reimbursed, and if we are, that's great, and if not, then, like I said, we move forward and move on.
And as I said, it was just to be transparent with the board that this has increased, but
Thank you.
we've already approved, so there's no approval needed on this. Next up is the intergovernmental agreement with the town of Fountain Hills. Dr. J, do you want to give any information on this?
Just sharing that, we've worked on this with both attorneys have had a chance to look at it. We value our partnership with the town, and I know they value their partnership with us. So everything, as far as I've been made aware, has been vetted and looks good.
Is this a continuation of something that we've had before? Or
Yes.
is this new?
We've had an IGA with the town. It basically allows the town to use our facilities, for us to use the town facilities and just work together without, because if you went to rent the community center, then you would have to pay for it. But, and same if they came and used our learning center, you'd have to pay for it. But this allows facilities and other items to go back and forth between us and the town.
Okay. And so nothing's changed?
Nothing that was brought to my attention from Dave that was concerning.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
So do we know to whose financial advantage this is? Is it to the towns or to ours? And who rents more of the other's facilities? And would it be cheaper if we just rented
I don't
their
think we
facilities?
really use it much. I'm going to be. I'm gonna be
Do
hon-
we use it when we do like the back to school stuff? Like,
We
does
use-
it fall into
Grad-
Parks and Rec or
graduation.
no?
Concert.
Well, we do graduation. They
We
work.
do senior night at the community center.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but some of those still have costs though, like graduation still has costs
Right.
to it, but they work with us on, it's more of just giving us the priority, I think, on some of those events. We have not used the community center as much for music. Jan hasn't done that yet. He's been offered to do that, but I think he has felt more comfortable doing it in the gym. It's just difference of opinion. But when Lynn was here, we used that a lot. I really don't see a lot of, sometimes we share equipment. So like our maintenance department, their maintenance department will share equipment. But I think it's more in place if something were to come up and we needed it. But I don't see very few times have I had to work with the town on something that they needed our facility, we needed theirs.
I just wonder if it's a revenue source or a revenue drain.
No, I don't think so. We're very proud of our community partners. This board has done a great job of expanding our community partners like Kiwanis and Rotary and, different organizations to be able to use our facilities to host meetings because they do so much for the school districts. And I think the town does do a good job of supporting back to school nights and doing things for the kids of the community. So anytime we can help, if they had some kind of sporting event or something like that, they could always work with us on our facilities. And remember, the gym at the middle school is required that local organizations can use it as part of the grant that paid for that. So, I just want to be clear about that too.
Any other questions or comments regarding the IGA with the town? Okay, hearing none, we'll move forward. We have a couple internal policy updates that Kaylee Brown had sent to us from Human Resources. Internal policies GBK and GBK-EA staff grievances. There is an area that was added that in the future, any staff grievances will have a notarized statement or report that needs to be submitted to qualify the report and substantiated. Any false reports are going to be turned over to MCSO.
I can speak to that.
Go ahead.
That is guidance from the Department of Ed certification unit when we report some kind of issue that may be unprofessional. They are sharing that verbiage with us, and it does require board approval to update it. And that is just saying that basically if you put in a report, the best practice they're now sharing is that the statement is notarized and that it is going to MCSO as well. So that is their guidance, and that's where we got that from, so.
Thank you.
I have a quick question
Go
on
ahead.
this one. So is it saying that in order for a staff member to bring a grievance to the board, they need to have a notarized statement, or they?
No, this is if an accusation is made of, say, a teacher was to do something, like to grab a child or something like that, then that would come to Kaylee to investigate. And they're saying that the notarized statement report would need to be submitted, and then it would be submitted to MCSO. So I don't believe this is in regard to this. I know why this came about, and that's why I asked her to put this on there. This has nothing to do with a staff member being upset with their principal or with something going on in the school district. This is regarding an actual staff member concern from, like, say, a parent or student or something like that.
Okay, because it says establish a grievance procedure for employees. And then it says later, in such instances, the affected individual may request that the governing board review the situation. And then that's when later it says a notarized statement or report will need to be submitted to qualify the report as substantiated.
So there's only certain grievances that can even come to the board. If you're a staff member, so if you're, this is regarding staff grievances, it's not regarding parent grievances, that's the next one, or public complaints. That it has to go through the chain, and so the only time it comes usually before the board is if an employee is being reprimanded and would like a public hearing. That's when it comes before the board.
Yeah, and that's my concern, is that if we're asking them to go and do a notarized statement, I think we're kind of putting them through a little bit of a process. And then it says any falsified reports will be turned over to the MCSO. I think it almost, to me, sounds a little bit threatening. You know, like I would prefer people feel like they can come to the board and ask for, you know.
They can. All it's
The
saying is
review.
that if you, basically what they're saying is if it's falsified, so if you make a false statement, it is going to MCSO. And it's to just let people know that if you're, and again, this is coming from them, this was the guidance we received, that the notarized statement will, the report will need to be submitted to qualify the report as substantiated, and then any false reports will go to MCSO. So we're just, again, we're taking their guidance from the Department of Ed and saying, do you want to add that to there or not?
I think it's so that people stop filing grievances that aren't true.
Yeah, and it looks like maybe the notarized one is the first step, that's what's being turned to you.
Any staff
Before
member
reaches
can
us.
can come with a concern about, they can go to HR anytime. That doesn't necessarily mean they have to fill that out. They could say they have a concern with their principal or dean or whatever, and that can be addressed with HR in the various ways that she has to deal with it. But I think this is just saying if you're gonna make a formal grievance, that you're gonna need to do that step.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding the staff grievances? Okay, next one is public complaints against personnel, about personnel. And same thing, it's adding in the notarized statement or report. if you're going to move forward with it, and that any falsified statements will be turned over to MCSO. It also changed in spite of to despite, which is just a grammatical thing. Any questions or comments regarding that one?
So, again, I don't know if I love this strength of this statement in there, because I would hope that people feel free to bring complaints, even if they don't feel it's that serious. I guess this is making me feel like it's because grievances can be things that aren't that big, and now we're telling people that if they have any kind of grievance or complaint or criticisms, that they need a notarized statement
No,
in order
let
to.
me explain a little
Okay.
further. So in all the years, I've only seen this form one time. And that wasn't even since I've been superintendent. That goes back to principal time, okay? I've exhausted all my concerns, and now I'm making it official and filling out this form, and then that carries a whole different level of work that needs to be done by the district. So for example, principals get complaints probably weekly about something that's not right or something that they have concern about. Principal deals with it, addresses it. If they're not happy, they make an appointment with me, I meet with them. If they're not happy, they're gonna come and talk to you all. And I encourage that. If you're not feeling supported, please go to the board and talk with them. I'm making an official complaint against this employee. And when that happens, it triggers a system of what needs to happen. And so the last time I've seen one of these come through was in 2017. Okay,
There's
so
a
these
difference
are
between
very
a
rare.
complaint and a grievance. A grievance that's official goes in their personnel file, where a complaint is usually just dealt with, like you said, between the principal and the parent, or the principal and the staff member. But if you're going to actually file something that's going to go in their personnel report, they want you to have it notarized.
So this should not change anything with parents calling with concerns. We get those all the time and we address them. So let's say you have a coach that they have a complaint against the coach. They've gone to the AD, they've gone to the principal, and they say, now I want to put in an official complaint against this person. They fill this out, and then at that point it triggers a series of next steps with a possible resolution that comes with it. And if they're still not satisfied, they come to the board then for a final resolution. The board can then make that final what they decide to do. So this is, again, a very rare document that is very rarely used. And what they're saying here is if you're going to make an official complaint, we're just saying that you get the complaint notarized, that it is the truth, and that what you're stating is, and if it turns out to be a falsified report, it is going to go to MCSO to investigate.
I appreciate that, and I think maybe it would help if we put something about a formal complaint or something, because this one is about public concerns and complaints about personnel. And so maybe if we can just say if it's the formal process requires the notarized statement.
It does. It says formal grievance presentation on page.
I'm looking at 198, I don't see
So look at
on here where
196.
it shows. Yeah, that's a separate policy though. On the public concerns complaints about personnel, it doesn't have the formal, or I guess it says in presentation of facts either formally or informally.
Right.
And then a notarized statement. So maybe if it's just for the formal.
Maybe to put, where she added a notarized statement or report will need to be submitted to qualify the report and substantiated, maybe it would, just adding to file a formal grievance, a notarized statement or report will be needed.
That's fine.
So
Yeah.
that way it's clear that
Yeah, we
it's
just
the
took the
formal
word,
grievance.
we just took it from AD, so we can, you can change it.
Yeah,
Perfect, thank you.
I think adding a formal grievance would satisfy that. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Moving on to our next batch of policies, which we thought we were going to be done next meeting, and then we got another batch that came in. Okay, so this is policy 792 is what we'll start with. So policy 792 is for policy advisory 792 is for policy BBBA, board member qualifications. It added a line, basically, that SB 1280 was amended by ARS 15-302 and 15-421 by adding that a convicted sex offender is ineligible for membership on a school district governing board. So that was added to that policy. Are there any questions or comments regarding that policy? Okay, hearing none. Next up is policy 793, policy GCF professional staff hiring. SB 1558 added ARS 15-509, which requires any individual who applies for employment by a K-12 district to disclose if said individual has pled guilty, no contest, been convicted, or is awaiting trial for various offenses, including dangerous crimes against children, sexual conduct with a minor, any crime requiring sex offender registration, and/or crimes in other states in similar categories. A knowing violation of this statute is a Class 6 felony unless failure to disclose was due to a good faith mistake of law. Are there any questions or comments regarding Policy Advisory 793?
You'd think this stuff would have already been in
You would think.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up is Policy Advisory 794, Policy GDF, support of staff hiring. It basically just reiterates what Policy GCF and Advisory 793 said. So, any questions or comments on that one?
No.
Okay. Next up is Policy Advisory 795 regarding Policy IHA Basic Instructional Program. HB 2779 amended ARS 15-701.02 to increase required instructional time on the Holocaust and other genocides. Are there any questions or comments regarding that? Okay. Hearing none. Policy Advisory 796, which is Policy IKF Graduation Requirements. It basically reiterates what the Policy Advisory 795 for Policy IHA states. Any questions or comments on that one? Okay. Next up is Policy Advisory 797, Policy JFABC, notification of board members, or I'm sorry, board meetings. Can I give you my bedtime? This one's a little longer. HB 2645 added 15-701.04, which delineates the role of the State Board of Education to develop guidelines for school districts and charter schools to consider in their policies that govern academic credit calculation, including partial credit, for foster students who transfer schools while enrolled in grades 9 through 12. A school district governing board or charter school governing board must also develop policies that address transfer credits for foster students who transfer in its school district or charter school, and additionally, within 10 days of receiving the foster student's educational records, a foster student must meet with a school official to discuss a graduation plan. In addition, a school district or charter school that enrolls a foster student can administer a local competency assessment in order to award full or partial credit for core competencies as applicable. Finally, a school district governing board or charter school governing board may not require an 11th or 12th grade transferring foster student to satisfy a course of study or competency requirement to graduate from high school that are in addition to or higher than the minimum course of study and competency requirements prescribed by the State Board of Education. Are there any questions or comments regarding that? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to Policy Advisory 798 regarding Policy JFB, Open Enrollment, and Regulation JFB-R, Open Enrollment. HB 2311 amended ARS 15-816.01 for school districts and ARS 15-184 for charters by adding an additional student category to whom a school district may give enrollment preference, specifically children of a member of the Armed Forces of the United States who is either on active duty or was killed in the line of duty. The regulation was also updated. Are there any questions or comments regarding that? Okay, hearing none. We'll move on. Policy Advisory 799, which is Policy JHD, Exclusions and Exemptions from School Attendance, Regulation JHD-R, Exclusions and Exemptions from School Attendance, Exhibit JHD-EA, and Exhibit JHD-EB, also regarding exclusions and exemptions from school attendance. Language was updated to align with ARS 15346. That basically states there should be an equitable process in place, such as a randomized lottery for applicant selection. So it changed the eligibility criteria regarding a chronic health condition. Instead of being a certified health professional, it's to a licensed health professional or nurse practitioner diagnosis. And so it pretty much changed all the certified to be licensed now. Dr. Rakowski, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I have a comment about, in several, with all this licensed health professional, in Arizona law, a health professional includes veterinarians, radiology techs, and all that. So they're all licensed. So this would say that a veterinarian could give a written chronic health condition certification. Now, how realistic is that? I don't know. But, you know, the wording here, wherever it says health professional, the language just, it doesn't make sense.
Well, and it's
So-
always said health professional, it's just they changed it from certified to licensed.
Right, so it's been wrong, and it still is wrong, so I don't know if there's some.
Maybe it could say appropriately licensed.
Well, yeah, and actually, on page 240, it does have a little different, it has a little, maybe better language. Let's see, 240 is,
232.
it says on F1, a school nurse or another health professional who is licensed pursuant to statute,
Right.
or a nurse practitioner. Now, a nurse practitioner is a health professional, so it's kind of redundant, but I think the license pursuant to statute would cover that it has to be someone that treats people, not other things.
Not dogs.
Right.
Well, not dogs or a radiology tech. I mean, that would nothing against radiology techs, but they shouldn't be given excuses for chronic health things. So.
Would you like to wordsmith that and send it to Krista, and she can send it to the board, and when it
Sure.
comes back for approval
Sure,
at the next
I can do
meeting?
that. Thank
Okay.
you.
So Dr. Rakowski will be wordsmithing Policy Advisory 799. So it's the policy, the regulation, and 2 exhibits, if you'll look at all 4 of those, please. We'll leave
Is
them.
it possible for you to get it in Word format, and I can just, okay, thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments regarding Policy Advisory 799? Okay. Helps to have a doctor on the board. Policy Advisory 800 is regarding Regulation JLCDR, medicines, administering medicines to students. HB 2174 amended ARS 15-344.01, 32-1401, 32-1854, and 32-1901.01 regarding the ordering and emergency administration of glucagon. Is that how you say that?
Glucagon, yes.
For students with diabetes, a school district may now obtain a standing order for glucagon and store doses at individual schools where it can be administered by a specified individual to a student with diabetes in an emergency. Are there questions or comments regarding Policy Advisory 800? Okay, hearing none, that ends our policy advisories, I believe. Yep. Those will come back at our next meeting. Because that one will be wordsmithed, Krista, could you please make sure it's on its own? Thank you. The rest will come back as one batch unless anyone has an objection. If so, please let Krista know by, let's see, our next board meeting is on the 23rd. So by like the 18th of October. Okay, future action, SPED presentation. Again, if you have questions that you would like answered from Leah, she is putting together a SPED presentation that will come in November. So if you have any questions or comments, if you could submit those to Krista by the 15th of October, that would be great. That way she can put them together and have a nice presentation for us. Climate Tech and Bel Air, they'll be here on the 23rd?
Yeah, I got confirmation.
Okay, so 10/23, they will be here. Strategies to boost enrollment in club policies. I've actually asked Dr. J to bring that to the board after the first, so you will have a new board that can discuss that. And having the discussion with me is probably irrelevant at this point, so maybe it'll bring some fresh ideas. Okay. So I'm not ignoring it. I just feel that your new board would be better. So, yep. So that'll come in, maybe February. At the end of January, February. Obviously, the first meeting, board members are still getting used to it. So, okay, dates of upcoming meetings. Our next board meeting will be.
Don't forget to add the bylaws. that we need?
I already have
It's
that.
already in there, it's not on this, but that's fine.
That's, well, yeah,
Okay.
she knows.
So we're fine.
Yeah, the bylaws for the next
I've
meeting.
already added them.
Dates of upcoming meetings, October 23rd and November 6th. Both will be business meetings here at 6 PM in the Learning Center. And with that,
I move you turn.
I second.
motion and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I have stuff for you guys to sign, so please don't leave, not you. Hey Bernie, I have a thing up here that I saved for you. Okay.
Rich.
This was some ASBA stuff that they're working on now for like the new year and stuff, so I thought you've already been elected, so I passed that on to you.
There's no PBIS for on Friday, this Friday.